With 1 second left in the game against Notre Dame, Ohio State scored a touchdown as Chip Trayanum plunged into the end zone from the 1-yard line. It capped a 15-play, 65-yard drive and earned Ohio State a critical early season win. After the game, Ohio State coach Ryan Day couldn't hold back his feelings. He said, "I'd like to know where Lou Holtz is right now. What he said about our team, I cannot believe. This is a tough team right here. We're proud to be from Ohio. It's always been Ohio against the world, and it'll continue to be Ohio against the world." In the aftermath of a big win, you can excuse Coach Day for not knowing some facts about Ohio State's toughness. First, Notre Dame only had 10 players on the field on the last play of the game. They were also missing a defender on the previous play from the 1-yard line. That play was an incompletion to Marvin Harrison Jr. Ohio State had the odds tipped in their favor as they won the game. Second, Ohio State was not that tough in running the ball against Notre Dame. It seemed like running back TreVeyon Henderson had a great game with 104 yards on 7.4 yards per carry. This is much better than the college football average of 5.1. However, 61 of those 104 yards came on a touchdown run in the third quarter. Otherwise, Henderson had 43 rushing yards on 3.3 yards per carry. One explosive play can skew a metric like yards per carry, which is why I prefer to look at success rate. For an offense, a play is a success based on the necessary yards towards the next first down. On first down, an offense needs 50% of those necessary yards. On second down, 70% of those necessary yards. On third and fourth down, obviously, all of those necessary yards. Success rate measures consistency on a play-by-play basis, and one outlier play cannot skew this metric. Against Notre Dame, Ohio State had a 26.9% rushing success rate. The college football average is 42.5 this season. The run game was an issue for Ohio State earlier this season. TreVeyon Henderson came into the season as a Heisman contender, but didn't show up against Notre Dame except for a lone play. He missed the next 3 games with an injury. A few weeks later, Ohio State earned a tough 20-12 win over Penn State. However, the Buckeyes had a 32.4% rushing success rate in this game, albeit against a tough defense. Ohio State won the game because Marvin Harrison Jr. played up to his potential as the best wide receiver in college football. He had 162 yards on 11 receptions and a critical touchdown. However, things changed the next week. Henderson came back from injury and had 162 yards on 24 carries against Wisconsin. Over the past 4 games, Ohio State has had a 48.1% success rate on run plays. This recent performance matters in making a prediction against Michigan, something we'll get into soon. Michigan has had a remarkable season. After somewhat sleepwalking through a week out-of-conference schedule, they started dominating Big Ten teams. 52-10 at Minnesota, 52-7 versus Indiana, 49-0 versus Michigan State. No one is going to write letters of recommendation to the College Football Playoff Committee about beating any of these teams. However, Michigan has had a better margin of victory against these 3 teams than Ohio State. They were also more dominant in success rate against Minnesota and Michigan State. Based on data from the current season, I take metrics like margin of victory and success rate and adjust for opponent based on my proprietary algorithms. I put these together to get a sense for team performance for the 2023 season. Based on this current data, Michigan is 3 points better than Ohio State. Michigan has answered 2 key questions since the preseason. First, the receiving core was considered the weakest part of this team. However, wide receiver Roman Wilson has emerged as a top threat, as he has gained 3.14 yards per route run. Any statistic over 3 is considered excellent in college football. Tight end Colson Loveland continues to fill his potential with 32 receptions, second behind only Wilson. Second, the defense has exceeded my expectations. Michigan ranks 12th in my adjusted success rate. One thing is clear. Michigan is in a better position to beat Ohio State this season than in either of the last two. As of Wednesday morning, Michigan is favored by 3.5 points at home. Contrast this with the past 2 years. Last year in 2022, Ohio State closed as a 9-point favorite at home. There was likely late market movement towards Ohio State when it became clear that Michigan running back Blake Corum wasn't at full strength. In 2021, Ohio State closed as a 6.5-point favorite on the road. For those past 2 seasons, Ohio State had C.J. Stroud at quarterback. With his success as an NFL rookie, Stroud looks like the best quarterback prospect since Patrick Mahomes. Kyle McCord has taken over at quarterback for Ohio State, and he is good. With probably the best set of receivers in college football, Ohio State is 8th in my adjusted passing success rate. However, McCord is not C.J. Stroud, and never will be. With this change at the most critical position and Michigan's strong performance from this year, the market has shifted on the results of this game. Michigan is favored by 3.5 points. My adjusted numbers based on this season would make the spread even larger. However, season-long averages are not the best way to predict the outcome of college football games. Let me explain. For a long time, I ran my member college football predictions based on these season-long results. This supported the power rank as a business for almost a decade. Then, in 2020, I couldn't run those season-long numbers like I usually do. With COVID, all 100 and some teams were no longer connected by out-of-conference games. This renders the math I use for schedule adjustments meaningless. I had to adapt. I developed a way to adjust the team's rating each week based on the past game results. This is a more aggressive system that moves quickly on a team. This system tends to lean more towards recent performance, like Ohio State in their last 4 games, as opposed to metrics from the entire season. I found this more aggressive system to give a smaller error in predicting the outcome of games than my old model. I trust this model even more when there is a reason for the recent surge in performance. Situations like when a Heisman-caliber running back returns from injury. Remember, Ohio State struggled running the ball before TreVeyon Henderson came back from injury. After the Penn State game, Ohio State ranked 112th in my rushing success rate adjusted for opponent. That is, frankly, embarrassing for an Ohio State program. Henderson came back the next week, and Ohio State has moved up to 64th in my adjusted rushing success rate. This rank, based on the season-long numbers, probably doesn't reflect how good the run game is right now. For most of the past month, my aggressive model has had Michigan ahead of Ohio State. This past week, Ohio State moved ahead of Michigan, if ever only so slightly. My member numbers, based on this aggressive model, favor Michigan by 1.5 points at home. I would lean towards Ohio State plus 3.5. I live in Ann Arbor, and the Harbaughs live in my neighborhood. While I've never seen Jim, I always see his dad, Jack, walking in the neighborhood. Earlier this season, I ran into Jack and exchanged some pleasantries. I asked him how his son was doing, as Jim was serving a 3-game suspension and didn't coach in those non-conference cupcake games. Jack said he was doing fine. I asked him whether as a dad he was going to hang out with his son during those games. Jack replied, "Hell no, I'm going to the game." Jim Harbaugh will not coach against Ohio State, and it seems safe to assume that his dad will not join him in his Ann Arbor home. But does Jim's absence matter? Maybe. I can't make any quantitative arguments about it, but it seems helpful to have every coach available in the most important regular season game of the year. In addition, Michigan linebacker coach Chris Partridge was fired for his involvement in the sign-stealing activities. Michigan is down 2 coaches. We'll see if this has an impact on the game. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Analytics Show. My name is Ed Fang, your host. This podcast was brought to you by the Power Ranks Sports Betting newsletter. This is a free service that strives to be 3 things. 1, valuable. 2, concise. 3, entertaining. Every week, I send out 5 Nugget Saturday, my curated list of sports betting tips, analytics, and humor. You'll often find some of my interception props in there, but also bets from other people that I consider sharp. If you're looking for action on any given weekend, this is the free service for you. To check it out, go to thepowerrank.com. That is my site for better sports betting information based on data and analytics. Once again, that's thepowerrank.com.